Good day, everyone. Today, we're honored to have with us Dr. Chris Fernandes. He's a distinguished businessman. After many years of impactful leadership at John Fernandes Limited, he undertook the role of chairman and CEO in 1992. With a new style of leadership, and he oversaw expansions and acquisitions in addition to John Fernandes Limited Shipping. And their subsidiaries includes Bounty Farm Ltd, Bounty Supermarkets, Fernandes Energy Inc, Fairfield Rice Inc, and JP Santos Company Ltd, in addition to a myriad number of partnerships. Dr. Fernandes has served as the Honorary Consul for Germany to Guyana, the first president of the Shipping Association of Guyana, Inc., over the period 1995 to 2002, among many other roles, which we'll hear more about today. For his long and dedicated service in the field of commerce and shipping, the government of Guyana awarded him two prestigious awards, the Cacique Crown of Honor and the Arrow of Achievement. Further, in 2004, he was bestowed with an honorary doctorate from the University of Guyana, and he also received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce for his outstanding accomplishments and significant contributions to the business community and the wider society. He's a distinguished graduate of St. Stanislaus College, the Irish Management Institute, and the Pennsylvania State University. Dr. Fernandes, welcome. It's an honor to have you with us today. We know this is something that you do not often do, and it is therefore even more meaningful that you chose to speak with us at Historical Research International on our history business segment. Dr. Fernandes, just to begin the segment, could you tell me a bit about your early life and education? I know you went to St. Stanislaus College, and much later on, you did some research with Penn State University and did some, not research, you did some studies with Penn State University and Irish Management Institute.
Okay. Well, I was born in 1944. I was the 12th of 14 children my parents had. And we only have two remaining, me and a sister who's in Canada. I name her Mrs. Regber, Anne-Marie Regber. Those are the only two of us remaining. Dad and Mom were very good Catholics. That's probably what was responsible for their good productivity. And I particularly often say that immediately after me, the last two happened to be twins. So I say and jest that having twins as number 13 and 14, that was a good enough signal that they should review their productivity so as to not to get, another dozen. We all went to St. Stanislaus, but we went first to St. Agnes's School, which was the nurse's school attached to the Ursuline Sisters. And in fact, it may be interesting to know that two of my sisters became Ursuline nuns. One went to study to be a nun when I just about walking, and the other one was the child before me, Sister Beatrice.
Yes.
So Sister Angela and Sister Beatrice were my two sisters. And you could imagine that to have that sort of, to create that sort of interest in among your children, you had to be a very good example for them in the Catholic Church. Which brings me to my grandmother. My grandmother was Delinda Marie Fernandes. She had 11 children, but I really wasn't lucky enough to know my grandfather. He had passed by the time I came along. But they had a small cycle store in Norquart Street, which eventually developed branches in Main Street and New Amsterdam, and it was known as DM Fernandes Limited. The DM is Deolinda Marie Fernandes, was her initials. When my grandfather died, long before I was born, he was died in 1924. He was deep into debt. And my dad, being the eldest in the family, took on the responsibility of working to settle his debts that he owed at the time. So he had a little functioning cycle store. So he helped with getting the other siblings to work with my grandmother to manage the cycle store. But as was factual in those days, migration was a significant option. And who did not pass, who did not die, in fact migrated. And eventually the business had to fold because we didn't have family members who were interested in carrying it on. But my dad, having helped to settle the old man's debt, developed the reputation of being honest John because he had no contractual liability to do that. But in fact, he was good enough to take on the responsibility and have it settled. So while he left his other siblings with his mother to tend the cycle store, he in fact branched out on his own. And his own was establishing a facility across in the Demerara River, across where Timeri now is, used to be Atkinson Field, and the Waratilla Creek. And he got a little lease of a property down there, of a piece of land, and he in fact cut firewood and burnt charcoal. And firewood and charcoal were very important fuel resources at that time because the firewood was used in the railway, the bakeries, and so on. And of course, the charcoal was more for household use. Everybody in those days had their coal pot, and they would use the charcoal as their heating source. So he, in fact, at the time, was he and his wife and the first two children actually lived on that location. He drove a truck himself to get the produce that he produced out to the edge of the river where they would load it to bring it to Georgetown. They marketed in the city, first of all, and then they started to get a little business in Trinidad and Barbados. And they went on to, in fact, when the fire destroyed the facility on the 16th of February 1962, it may have been.
Dr. Fernandes, approximately when did he start his business?
Mid-20s.
Mid-20s.
20s.
Okay.
He started with producing the charcoal and the firewood.
Charcoal.
And bringing it to the city. And it was marketed as Jofa charcoal.
Yes. Yes.
And charcoal is what it made. But he developed good markets for in the bakeries and the railway at the time. The trains used to use the wood. So it became quite a regular business. And in fact, he was able to get into the foreign market. And in fact, when the fire came, in fact, he had 2,000 tons of charcoal going to Liverpool in England which is a market he had developed a little at a time, but eventually we were at 2,000-ton shipments, which were quite significant.
It's a great loss.
Well, I came along, and by then, my brothers were obviously I am number 12, so a lot of my siblings were older than I. I tried 3 brothers that were into the business before me. I should say 2 brothers, which is John, my eldest brother, and Bunny, who was just before me.
Before that, you said you worked with Getty's Grant before.
Yeah. Well, when I left school, I went to work at Getty's Grant because my mother was convinced that I should not go right from school into the family business. I should, in fact, get some experience working with a public company. And even though I wanted to do agriculture, my old man got me into a job with Getty's Grant in the agricultural department. So I quickly, from learning from my boss who sat across the table from me, as to what advice you could give farmers when they come in with their various problems. So I became quite knowledgeable in the field of agriculture. But after about four years, I got there near 62, and about 66. I was doing a fairly good job, but in the department, the agriculture department at Getty's Grant was doing very well. And Tommy Rhodes, who was my boss, approached the finance controller and said, "Man, we're doing so well. How you could only give Chris a $10 a month increase in pay? $10, Guyana money." So he said, "Well, if you add my bonuses, I was working for a lot of money." So I went home and I told Dad that what they told me. And he said, "Well, son, once you can pay according to your age and not according to your worth, you really have no reason to stay there." Right? And at the same time, he had, you got to remember we were in a difficult time in the mid 50s, 60s, where people started to migrate. There was huge migration, particularly the Portuguese part of our society. He had given an insurance agency to his brother Gabriel, who used to work with him, and he had given the insurance agency to Gabriel. Well, Gabriel was married to a Canadian, and it was a Canadian insurance company. When Gabriel decided that his wife no longer wanted to stay in Guyana and she wanted to go back home, Gabriel was in a spot. So he tried to get Western Insurance, to the Canadian insurance, to in fact allow him to employ a manager and visit the country periodically. And they told the old man quite blankly that either he took it back or they would close it altogether. So with me having my little problem at Getty's Grant, the old man said, "Well, why don't you consider coming and working in insurance?" Well, I was about contemplating marriage at the time, so I was glad for an extra dollar. So I happily accepted the offer, and I went to work with the John Fernandes. Wasn't John Fernandes Limited? Was John Fernandes a separate entity, an insurance agency, and I was the manager, the claims settling officer, the accountant. I only had a cashier, a messenger, and me. So I knew nothing about insurance. So here it is. I was trying to ask Tom, Dick, and Harry and to get knowledge about insurance. And I could remember going to the insurance meetings at GTM, in GTM boardroom, and walking down the road between John Fernandes Limited and Water Street and GTM. And the old man was such a personality that anybody looked in his direction, he would stop and chat with them. And he was a treasure. You know, we can never ever understate what he meant to us as a family. And I would have
Yeah, how
learned.
important he was to
Yeah, it was.
to you and to the company and to Guyana.
Yeah. He gave me a lesson which I will never ever forget, and I tell people over and over and over. Part of the insurance is you insure motor cars. So a motor car was recently insured and crashed. So and it was uneconomical to repair. So as customary, the insured called into the office, and me dealing with this for the first time, I didn't know what way to turn. So we managed to settle with the insured, and of course we had to sell the wreck and recover whatever we could from that sale to offset some of the claim that we paid. So a guy called in and told me, he understand we had a wreck and he wanted to sell it. And I said, yes, so and so. He said, well, I can offer you X amount for the car, for the wreck, for the remains. So I said, fair enough, that sounds reasonable. But before he could, in fact, come and do business, another guy came in off the street and offered me another $500,000. Well, not 500,000 in those days was a bit more. So I told the man, go, yes, I wasn't sure that the guy who telephoned in will show up with the money. So I took the higher money and I was happily that I got a couple of $100,000 more for the car than I would first have gotten. Not realizing that the guy who called in was known to the old man or the old man was known to him. So when he got the word that he no longer could get the car, that I confirmed that I would sell him at a reduced price, he called the old man, and the old man brought me to his desk and gave me the first lesson in etiquette. Told me that my word must be my bond. So nowhere on earth I had to go up Duncan Street looking to see if I could find the car that I had sold to the second guy to give a little inducement to get it back so that I could give it to the first guy. So that lived with me ever since, that if you give somebody a word, it's your bond. You know, in no way you could just decide that you discarded what you promised people. Whatever it is, it is. So that was my first lesson from him. And the fact that he would be so easy to speak with anybody in the street. I never had much to say at the meetings, but I learned a lot from the more experienced senior persons at the meetings, at the insurance association meetings that I attended with them. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's an important area to look at, honesty, especially in business.
Yeah.
You often hear that business has a different sort of code. But I think that is one of the reasons that John Fernandes Limited has been so successful, because of they've been honest with all their dealings over the years. Now, after you left, you were in the insurance industry for a while. You then moved on to another area within John Fernandes Limited. Could you tell me more about your role?
When the old man died, the family came home, whoever was overseas, and because my big brother John had already gone to Miami to work with a shipping company over there. So they came home and said that maybe I should, and Carl Xavier was the secretary director at the time, and he had given us notice that the old man died in December, and he told us that Junior had already migrated, and Carl told us he was going in May, and he would be resigning. And the family decided that I should leave the insurance and come home to work as the secretary director of John Fernandes Limited, which I did. But they gave me permission. They gave me permission to continue to manage the insurance office, even though I was not there full time. I would pay them a periodic call, and I had management in place that would handle the insurance business for me. When the old man was making the company, John Fernandes Limited, into a limited liability company, he had to apportion shares. And the four brothers at the time who were working with the company when he decided to allocate shares were given equal shares. Myself and my brother Peter, who was a veterinarian, who had his education at university, the two of us had lesser shares. The old man reason that I had
Insurance
the insurance, and Peter had his
company.
education. Could whatever happened, he'll still have his doctorate with him.
Mhm.
A veterinary man, a very good veterinary guy, and he worked with the government here in quite a senior position. So I had myself and my wife had the insurance business and lesser shares in the shipping business than the other four brothers who were working in the business at the time. So my brother Bunny, who was the CEO at the time and chairman, asked to have early retirement. At the age of 48, he decided to retire, and the directors gave them permission to retire. And I was asked to take over the reins of the company at that time. I think at that time was 1991,
1992.
1992. So I took charge of the company in 1992, and I've been with it. I gave up the position of CEO in 2013, and only last year I vacated the post of chairman. Because in reality, over the last 10 years, the oil and gas industry has revolutionized the commerce locally, and I really did not keep up with the pace of what was taking place, and I conceded, and I asked to step down as chairman, which I've done. I'm still a director, but no longer the chairman of the company.
Dr. Finance, while you were in charge from 1992, you oversaw a large partnerships and subsidiaries. There was Bounty Farm Limited, Bounty Supermarkets, Fairfield Rice Inc., as well as JP Santos and Company. Could you tell me about how you managed and were able to acquire and start all of these industries? You can choose any one or all that you'd like to discuss.
Okay. Well, you got to remember during during the Burnham years, forgive me for saying that, during the Burnham years, things were a little difficult for business. President Hoyt was a big plus, and business became a lot easier when he introduced the economic recovery program, and he allowed the Guyana dollar to find its own level. It became a lot easier to do business in Guyana. So once you're able to increase your ability to do business legally, it became easy for it to extend, grow, because when the old man first started out, he had a small piece of property on the river, just where we are now, but he was renting it from Fogarty's. And until 1962, I think it was, when I told her the place was burnt flat, was February 16th, 1962, I think it was. From that beginning, right away, the old man, while everything burned from the market to where Republic Bank is now. They got Barclays on one side with GBTI. Right there, from that street, that Rob Street, which is where Republic Bank is, and where GBTI is, everything south of Rob Street burnt right through to the market. You couldn't believe it. Well, the old man had such faith in the Lord and his own feeling. He had his own feeling at the time, and he went back into business almost immediately. He used to go on the waterfront and supervise the construction himself, and we were able to get over time. We were able to get to buy majority shares in the Fernandes Company Ltd, which is to the south of us, between where we are in the market. We paid handsomely for it, but we were able to get it to buy. And it was only possible because of the economic recovery program, where instead of getting 2-to-1 to the US dollar, you were getting now 125, 130. It was growing almost monthly. So the international companies were accustomed to paying us in US dollars. So we know when we got our US dollars, we were getting so much more Guyana dollars for those US dollars that it became a lot more attractive, a lot more lucrative to do your expansion work. To the north of us was JP Santos, and JP Santos, the shareholders of JP Santos were mainly overseas, and we offered them an amount per share. In fact, it was $12 a share. We offered them $10 a share, and we actually settled with the major shareholders at $12 per share. And we never withdrew the offer. And within 6 months, we had more than 50% of the shares ownership of JP Santos. And most of the JP Santos major shareholders were overseas as well. Even though the other 40-odd%, most of them were not local people. And we were able to extend our business going north along the river, because that's where JP Santos was. And that is where the Bounty Farm bit came in, because JP Santos had supermarkets in Kitty, Regent Street, Upley Bank, and Water Street. So we were able to get those locations and just use the Bounty Farm name instead of JP Santos' name to house those facilities. So because Bounty Farm, when it first started, used to operate out of a a little caravan in Water Street. We would bring down the chicken, have a couple of freezers. There was no supermarket as we know it now. It was just a train carriage with a couple of freezers inside. And the chickens we produced at Chimeri were retailed at that facility.
So they were able to start small and then you're able to grow in terms of the Bounty
No,
Farm.
we had between JP Santos and GBTI,
Mm-hmm.
there was Guyana Stores Agencies Division, and the government decided to dispose of it, and we were one of those who bid for it, and we were able to win the bid, and we were able to get, so we have almost from the market right through to Rob Street right now as river frontage, which has allowed us to develop the business we have, and we handle about 50%, a little more than 50% of the containerized cargo going in and out of Georgetown.
That's
All the
amazing.
rice going out and sugar and so on, that's not containerized. But the
Mm-hmm.
containerized cargo, the general cargo, everything that you see in the supermarkets or the hardware stores will come by containers. And we handle over 50%.
And all that happened on the year 10-year.
So God has been good to us. I always, there are several things that happen in business for us where I am concerned that I say in jest that my old man is upstairs manipulating all this has happened because couldn't be handled any other way. All the decisions couldn't break in our favor.
Could you share with me a bit about Fairfield Rice Inc? I know that's one of the subsidiaries of John Fernandes Limited as well.
Well, Fairfield is an unusual situation. And this is why the timing of things is so important. We have big input into livestock, and as far as chickens are concerned, and we recognize that to manufacture the feed, it is important that you get rice, which is a big component of livestock feed. So we recognize that not only that, but in those days, foreign currency was very hard to get.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a regulation which said that you're allowed to keep for your own use 10% of your foreign earnings on any rice exports.
Mm.
So we took those two things into account. And we decided that a rice estate is one that we should consider. And we were able to get the rice estate at Fairfield to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And we purchased it for $2 million Ghana. Well, imagine $2 million Ghana in today's world, right? It's a joke. So when we bought it, it was 2-1 to the US. But now, you couldn't wipe the foot in the estate for anything of that nature. Right now, we've developed it over the years, and we are still in developmental stage, and we have a joint venture partner coming out of Jamaica, and we think we're onto something very lucrative. with Fairfield. But again, that's just how the things broke in our favor. In addition to what I was just saying, I think my brother Bonnie, who was still with us at the time, and he viewed that we would need additional employment opportunities for members of our family. Because from when I joined the company, there were about 5 or 6 family members working with the company. Now there are over 2 dozen. I have 4. I should say we have 4. And several others, a couple of brothers have a few, 3 and 4. And their children have also. So it's quite a lot because what we do, one of the good things that we decided to do was we offer scholarships. Those qualifying to go to university, we offer scholarships on the condition that they come back to serve the company for as many years. If you go to university for 4 years, you come back to serve for 4 years. And it's for us to encourage you to stay by giving you a good package. And it's working out fairly well for us because we don't have a huge exit of our family members going to greener pastures, so to speak.
On your leadership for all those many years, you've done a lot in relation to all the other industries in Bounty Farm and Fairfield and so on. So it's to be greatly commended that you're able to not only lead in shipping and getting over 50%, as you say, in the shipping, but all these other subsidiaries and partnerships that you have. Moving on a little bit, I know you've been involved in many organizations. You're in hockey, the Shipping Association of Guyana, the Caribbean Shipping Association. Can you tell us a bit about the Shipping Association of Guyana?
When I joined the business, there was an organization known as the Georgetown Shipping Association. And the major players in that association were Booker's, Sambach Parker, Spross Sons. Those were 3 multinational corporations, and they formed the Georgetown Shipping Association. The Georgetown Shipping Association had their own union. In other words, so we not being part of the Georgetown Shipping Association, we're not bound by anything that their union called for. So we were able to have our own tariff where labor is concerned, did our own thing. The government eventually nationalized all 3. So it became Guyana National Engineering, Guyana National Shipping, and Guyana National Trading. Well, Guyana National Trading is now Mooney Shores. Guyana National Engineering is still government, and shipping is still government, but they're very, as you can imagine, it wasn't difficult for us to compete against government corporations because the management of government corporations had no incentive, no get up and go. They were just carrying on a task that they were given, and it wasn't difficult for us to compete successfully against them. So I got together with representatives of the same organization because the Georgetown Shipping Association folded up. When those 3 companies were nationalized, the Guyana Shipping Association, the Georgetown Shipping Association folded up. And I was able to get together with them and other shipping agents and so on, boat owners and things, and form the Guyana Shipping Association. So with my doing that it was formed, and I was the president for about 5 or 6 years, and was quite a success story. Philip was the president until recently, but he too has given up the job because we're not getting good support from the other members locally, and so there's no sense only one or two people trying to keep the show going while others sitting down just reaping the benefits when they occur.
You're also involved with the Caribbean Shipping Association as well.
The Caribbean Shipping Association has 3 memberships: a Group A, Group B, and Group C. Group A is stevedores and agents. Group B is terminal operators, and Group C is boat owners. Well, I had the task of being chairman of Group A, which is the stevedore, contractors, and agents. And the agent for a vessel coming to Georgetown will have an agent. An agent will get commission on this freight in and out, and it will have the responsibility of ensuring it's properly discharged and so on. So I was chairman of that section, Group A.
The distinction is different with those 3 different areas. So
Yeah.
that's good to know. There's another, you're also on the board of Food for the Poor Guyana. Can you share with us a bit about your role and the role that the company played? I know they also assisted with shipping as well for the Food for the Poor items.
Well, I don't have the dates readily available, but when it was first formed, Paul Chanasu, you may know the name.
Yes.
Paul Chanasu was the chairman of Guyana Stores after Booker's gave away to Guyana Stores. And Paul Chanasu was the chairman of Food for the Poor. And Cheryl Lopes was once involved initially, and I became involved as a member way back, some 25, 35 years ago. I actually have the year in my records. But we, as a company, and supportive of the charitable work that Food for the Poor do, we in fact had given them a concession that in moving their containers around from the our terminal to their premises to be unstuffed and so on, we only charge them 50%, or we gave them 50% discount on all those movements. All the 30 years we've been doing it.
Wonderful.
I make no attempt to quantify that contribution, but it was factual. But having reached the age that I'm at, I thought it was the only right that I should stand down. Because, I'm well into the 4th quarter. So when you reach the 4th quarter, you're supposed to decide where the bench is.
That was very good corporate social responsibility and being able to give to charitable organizations.
Yeah.
Now I know that you have also done other charitable works in relation to the Catholic Church. I know that you were on the fundraising committee of the St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. Would you like to share a bit about that?
Well, I only got involved when they had the fire. And by coincidence, I don't know if the Lord sent me, but by coincidence, I got involved just before the fire. So I was responsible for all the things that have been going on since then. I was involved in Cayuca since Father Morrison, long before you were born.
Yes.
Father Morrison, well, the Cayuca was built by several people, but my dad was one. You know, as you said, he was a staunch Catholic, and himself and William Martin Fredericks, who had a stone quarry business, um, were instrumental in building Cayuca into what it is today. Since Stanislaus College has been dear to me, my father was the first president of the St. Stanislaus Association. In 2005, I was asked by Henry Jeffrey, the then Minister of Education, to head a board of governors, which he had selected. But after seeing the board that he selected, I wasn't particularly impressed because the names that he gave me were not former students and were not people who I recognize as being hardworking individuals. So I responded to him and said, look, I don't mind accepting the task, but allow me to select my team. So I had a meeting at the Georgetown Club. He gave me one of his chief education officers to be at the meeting. And we put out an appeal to all those alumni I could find, put my hand on, to ask them whether they were prepared to serve. Well, I'm going to call some names who you may recognize. I call Annie Carto, Keith
Yes.
Chumley,
Mm-hmm.
Winston Brassington,
Mm-hmm.
I think Nigel Hughes, Robin Lowe. Oh, quite a good group of guys. Until last year, I was chairman of the board of St. Santos College. It was the first time we were being governed by a board. Prior to that was the college association, where the main people who administered the school, the college association that was, which the old man was the first president. And I had served, my brother had served through the years. But this time, now we had a board. Right now, Dr. David Singh has been replaced. He replaced me as chairman with effect from this year. And this year is a big one because this year is 160 years
Mm-hmm.
since it was established.
Yes.
So right now, there are going to be a big plans being drawn up, or maybe highlighted in November this year, because that is the anniversary time. In this same room, I'm sitting in our boardroom, Dr. Fernandes came to present me with a little token from the Toronto boys.
We've covered so much. There's one aspect that we didn't really speak of. Your wife, Mrs. Desiree Fernandes, Aunt Des. Could you tell us a little bit more about Aunt Des and when you got married and a bit about your children? I know she's very important to you and your journey.
I have a recording of my award of my doctorate, which I spoke about her. My wife Desiree, I met her in my teenage years. While people commend me, probably thought that I already knew all there was to know. Desiree taught me the virtues of commitment, faith, and love. While she is not one to get involved in business matters, Desiree plunged herself into fundraising activities that I had inherited from my father with an energy like I had never seen before. Desiree's commitment was often what kept me going. Her faith in God and love for family has encouraged me to be as selfless and committed to community service as she has been over the years. You know, we had 4 sons. Maybe if I knew they would be as good as they are, I would have been inclined to have 8. But unfortunately, we might have girls. So, you know, that might spoil the party. That might have spoiled the party. But no, she's been good. She's been a good support. And she has helped me quite a bit. Because even though what you're doing here is appreciated, I gonna as I sent you the document I sent you was the text of my story of my life. But I just want something that my family, at least my grandchildren,
Yes, yeah. What year did you get married?
1966.
Ah, same year as Guyana's independence.
Yeah, I became independent then. I was no, I was the same year I joined the company in insurance because, as I said earlier, and the fact I was getting married, I could do it an extra dollar. So I was happy to get his grant aside and go to get my own little bundle of joy in that insurance agency business. We no doubt will be in touch several times because I could think of a couple of things I will send you, which will help you to understand a little more.
Yes. Dr. Fernandez, it's been such an honor that you took the time and that you chose to speak with us. Your life is fascinating and you have contributed not only to John Fernandes Limited, but to various areas of Guyana's history. So we thank you so much for all that you have done.